Another All Things MSP Live. Yes, it's Wednesday night, and this is when we do the live show because typically my wife has something on Wednesday nights, so it leaves me free to do what I love to do best, which is engage with this community. Now, as you guys know, one of the first things I do kind of to kill time while everybody is figuring out that we've gone live is to make sure that all of the platforms have gone live. So let me just really quick check. And of course I have to mute myself when I come up, but looks like LinkedIn is working. Let me just put a comment out there. All right, so let's see. Yep, that one shows up. Let's do Facebook. Yep, and we've gone live there. So let me welcome the people there. And last but not least, YouTube, which I don't know why, but YouTube automatically mutes me anyway, which is great because I don't have to worry about, talking over myself. All right, hello, YouTube. Oh, and I spelled them all right tonight. I didn't have any typos. That's unusual for me. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yep, we have all the comments working. So if you are watching us live, go ahead and comment. Let us know that you're here. We usually have a couple of regulars here, and they're always good for some questions. Tonight will be a great chance to ask questions because, of course, tonight we're talking about building a security stack that you can actually sell. And what we mean by that is that we are going to be talking about not only what you should have in your security stack, what a security stack looks like, but also what you should do to sell your security stack. And because a lot of us are technicians at heart, right? We're not necessarily wired for sales. And so there are a lot of things, a lot of pointers, a lot of tips that we could use to actually sell security products. Because, I compare selling security products sometimes to selling insurance. And it is hard to get over that mindset that you're selling them something that they don't really need because there's a chance, a very small chance, that it's not going to happen. But, when we all buy insurance though, right? Because if that does happen, and when it does happen, it's something that we really do need. I know that we had a hailstorm here. I think it was about 7 years ago, and I had to have the roof replaced. Well, that would have been like a $25,000 roof had I had to pay for it myself and not had insurance. So it's the same kind of thing. You are doing the best thing for the client by selling them into your security stack to make sure you're reducing their risk and speeding up the recovery time when something does happen. And folks, I know a lot of people have said it, but it really is a when and not an if. And especially as an MSP, because you guys have seen it. I don't have to really tell you, but across all of your clients, I guarantee you, you guys have had some kind of incident. Now, hopefully it hasn't been catastrophic, right? Hopefully you've had everything in place that you needed in order to remediate and get them back up and running very quickly. All right, we've got about a minute left. So in that minute, I do want to mention that we do have merch now. So if you want to buy a t-shirt, you want to buy a hoodie, you want to buy a puzzle. We actually have an All Things MSP puzzle. I know it's kind of stupid, but it is a way for you to support this channel. And, obviously, because we do this as a passion project, we want to expand it. We're looking for sources of income so that we can bring you better content. That's my intention, and just want to let you know it's a way for you to show your support for the channel. And speaking of the channel, let me just run over here real quick. And if you would do us the favor, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and ring that bell so that we know that you're getting all of the different content that we're putting out there. All right, well, I ran a little bit over, I think, so let's go ahead and start this thing. All right, welcome back, everybody. I do see that we have a pretty full house. We've got Alan here, we've got Degley here, we've got Tim here, we've got Justin here. Lots of great people already here tonight. Looks like we're getting some pretty good numbers tonight, which is great. Have a great guest tonight, and of course, we're talking about something that is critical to your MSP. And that is how to build a security stack, and more importantly, how to sell that security stack. Now, a couple of things that I want to mention before we get started tonight. We do have some new vendor partners. So we have MoveBot is a new vendor partner for all things MSP. They're going to be at IT Nation for anybody else who's going to be there. And they're going to be running a special where if you register as an MSP partner, you get 250 gigabytes of data. And then our second vendor partner for this evening is Channel Program. So if you're not familiar with Channel Program, they're a community-ish spot where they bring vendors and MSPs together. It's a really neat way they do it because it allows the MSPs to be kind of anonymous. And it also provides some tools for the MSP like Navistack, which allows them to visually show you your stack, all of the different products and tools that you use to deliver your services. All right, so with that, tonight I have Craig Willard. Craig is the founding member of SimplifIT, a forward-thinking, cybersecurity-focused MSP. He spent over 15 years in healthcare information technology, including 7+ years of senior-level leadership experience within a Fortune 100 company. The guy's got experience, okay? He received a multi-year award for the best healthcare IT department in the US by Healthcare IT News. And Craig also authored a best-selling book called The High Performance Mindset, which, we all need these days because it's not easy out there. So without further ado, but with a drum roll, because I have that now. Please welcome Craig to the show.
That's a first, so appreciate that.
Well, we're techies. We have toys. We like to use them.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So, Craig, besides that bio, is there anything else that we need to know about you, about your MSP that you want to share?
No, we work hard just like everyone else. We learn just like everyone else, and appreciate these groups just like yours and others like it that allow us to grow. And when we started our MSP in 2018, we started an MSP from 2018, and two of us were corporate people, so we had to evolve as well. And so these groups have been very beneficial. But no, we're chugging along like you all are.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, and I really love to have MSPs on here because so often the vendors jump at a chance to be on something like this, right?
Yeah.
And they have value, right? A lot of them understand, especially now, that it's about educating and not selling. And we kind of talked about that a little bit
Sure.
Before we started the show. And a little bit, just because you mentioned it, I want to talk just for a second about the value of these communities, because there are several, and I think there's value in joining all of them for the most part, right? Because there are
Yes.
so many of these groups that are run by non-vendor people, right?
Yeah.
Now, I live on the vendor side as my day job, but this is separate from that. I did this as a separate passion project. What are some of the other communities out there that you're involved with that have helped you grow your MSP?
So you put me on the spot because I don't exactly know all the names, but the other one, the IT business owners group, the Scott's group.
Yep.
So I'll be really honest and very transparent about it. I love the groups that allow freedom and flexibilities in the group. To me, that develops, there's just a lot more to give and get and to receive from those groups that are not locked down by control mechanisms or admins that are attempting to control content and stuff. So just to say, I love the ones that are like yours, where I say, hey, can I post something? You're like, absolutely, please post it. So yours and Scott are two of my favorite groups, actually.
Yeah, I love Scott's group. In fact,
Yeah,
Scott and I have talked quite a bit about our different groups, and
yeah,
I really respect what he's done and what he's doing,
yeah,
and he's growing just like we are, and
yeah.
doing new things all the time. So definitely check it out. It's IT Business
Sure.
Owners Group on
Yep.
Facebook, and then you, sir, have started a podcast.
Here recently, yeah, and so I built, or I wanted to start a podcast that was really focused on the MSP, focused on their perspective, and we've brought the likes of like Art Gross on there to talk more about the MSP space and not so much about the sales or what he does at Breach Secure Now or his own MSP, but just about that MSP space, but helping other MSP owners learn from other MSP owners about whatever it is that they go through every single day, including security. Or I recently posted a topic ask on acquisitions. Has there anyone that's made a successful acquisition that they want to share? How did they get there? What did they learn? What were the red flags and all of that type of stuff? So that's the kind of stuff I'm putting on there. It's not vendor focused. It's more MSP and the business owner focus.
Yep, and I actually saw that post today as well. So thank you for
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
engaging with the group. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So tonight we are talking about security stacks, and specifically the selling of said, security stacks. So I think it's probably a good idea to start with a baseline of what is in a security stack. What should the modern MSP be looking at as far as including in their security stack?
It's a really good question, and honestly, from where we started as an MSP to now, it's completely transformed. When we first started, we didn't know. We looked around. We looked in these groups, and we saw what people were posting. What's this application? What's that solution? What's this? What's that? And then we started to just kind of throw things together, see if we could put a price on it, and then sell it. And I mean, it does work, but it's like anything else. You really need a strategy for understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, so that when you put it together, it makes sense. And so from what we did originally to now is about 2.5 or 3 years ago, we started to get more and more cyber reliability insurance applications, and they became bigger and bigger and bigger. And to me, that was a target. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, people are going to start asking for cyber reliability insurance, but they're going to have to meet some sort of requirement. And you see these applications, and it's really funny because it's not really an application. They're asking you very specific questions, and they are judging you from the moment you start the application until you finish it. And it may be there may be multi options for a particular question, but they're not options. There's one specifically that they're looking for, and everyone else gets judged. It's, do you do backups weekly, monthly, daily? And there's really only one answer that they're looking for. And so we re-engineered our managed services offering to meet those requirements. So we took, half a dozen different applications. We started to look at them. What are they seeing? Because obviously they've seen concerns in these areas. That's why they're asking these questions. And we started to reverse engineer the deliverables that we have to ensure that we meet about 90+%, depending upon what application it is. We want to meet those. We want to be able to say, hey, client, when you get your application, send it to us. We're going to check those boxes for you. Every once in a while, there may be one that we don't have. We're going to put that in there for you because we want to make sure you get the best rates, the best, deductibles, and the highest payouts. And so that's how you do that. And so that was a strategy for us that has worked really well. And it's part of the conversation too when we're dealing with a prospect is we're very focused on this. And so if you have a cyber reliability application, we're going to do everything we can to get you the best rates and everything else because our solution is built around that.
Yeah, and
Is that?
yeah, that's a great explanation. In fact, I was
Yeah.
going to kind of just comment that a lot of people look at, say, a NIST framework
Yeah.
or something like that, and those are ideal, right? They
Sure.
talk
Sure.
about an ideal and they give you some ways to comply with and engage with that and actually
Yeah.
make those things happen and work within that framework.
Yep.
The thing I think is important about what you said, though, is that the cyber liability insurance is a much more real thing to your
Yeah.
client than a NIST framework.
Yeah.
Okay. There's actually dollar ramifications of filling out that form correctly, having those things that they want, that they list on those forms in place, and then, having to make a claim. And you've
Yeah.
mentioned discounts as well. That's something that we're starting to see more and more. And so I think it's a very practical way to address cybersecurity in going out, getting your clients' applications, getting copies of those, and
Yeah.
then reverse engineering that, like you said, in order to create a stack that's going to comply and satisfy those requirements.
NIST standards, they're standards. And most of them outside of like CIS, most of those types of standards are slow. They just don't keep up. What you know about cyber liability insurance is they've been hit.
Yeah.
They are concerned. And so if it's on their paper, they're worried about it. And if they're worried about it, you should be too. So
Yeah.
it is a direct correlation to risk. And yeah, if you do the NIST or if you're an 80171 person and you love to apply that everywhere you can as much as possible, great. But you also have to make sure that you're covering for the CLI stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's you said it perfectly. It's about motivation.
Yeah,
Okay. And it's about the insurance companies are monetarily motivated. The clients are going to be monetarily motivated because it's insurance and their rate is going to depend on how well they're covered and
yeah,
whether or not they get paid in the event of an
correct.
event of a breach, whatever.
Mm. Right,
Um,
right.
it matters to them. It has materiality to them. Whereas the NIST framework, it's nice, but there isn't the urgency and the motivation there that you have with the insurance companies.
Yeah, because there's a direct correlation to your pocketbook. If you have a breach, the NIST standard it's not relevant. What's relevant is ensuring that whatever you offered as a yes that you do on your cyber liability insurance, you better be doing it because it's lying to them is, I mean, it may as well be lying to the federal government. There's a fee for that. There's a penalty
Yeah.
for that. And as we've already seen with like travelers completely destroying cyber insurance policies over the lack of MFA when they checked the box. So it's not just enough to say, here's what we need to be including. It's also validating and being able to prove that those things are being done.
Yeah. We have a comment, a question from Tim Golden.
Oh boy.
I know. Talk about experts on the show. He says maybe Craig could talk a little bit about how healthcare providers, something like that they use an insurance card for not providing services. In other words, we hear from our healthcare clients, I don't want to do that insurance. We'll just pay when we get messed up.
Well, that's not uncommon. It's actually happened. I mean, there's been, I know one particular example. There was an ENT that just, they attempted to close shop when they had a ransomware attack, and you can't do that because there's rules in place. You got to have that data available to your patients, and so, yeah, healthcare is a weird place. I come from a corporate world where it's really important. It's critical. I had a role in it. I was the HIPAA security official for the hospital, and so it was everything that I live, eat, and breathe, and sleep. And then when we worked with a potential vendor or someone else that we were looking for a business associates agreement, we asked questions about their risk assessments and did they do one? Do they understand that? And majority of them don't. They don't even care. They really don't care about that side of things. They're not even like. Let's just be honest, and I'm not harping on them, but a lot of small physician practices don't even care about HIPAA. They're not even going to care about cyber liability insurance. But the reality of it is it's your role as you're going in there to help them understand, and you teach them in a way that's very that's full of empathy. Like you care, it matters, and you understand it's expensive. But at the end of the day, it's what happens if your business isn't here tomorrow? Like,
Yeah.
and that's a real question. What is that like if you've got 6 physicians and you've got, 4 nurse practitioners and a staff of 15, and every one of them rely on this business to put food on the table for their kids. And tomorrow you wake up because you felt like you didn't either do the security or you didn't have insurance to help, at least to some degree, cover for that. You didn't. What's it going to be like if you walk in tomorrow and you have to tell everyone they go home and you have nothing to offer anymore, or you
Yeah.
have to start from scratch? And I think I hope that's what Tim is asking per se, but you have to find a way to have a conversation with them where it matters and put some reality in what could be consumed as a one-off. I'm not going to get breached. I haven't been,
Yeah.
and we don't have anything in place. So why do I need to pay someone money to either put solutions in, or why do I need to pay even more money for insurance? But that's the likes of, well, you also, you put full coverage on your car. Maybe you don't owe anything on your car. Should you still put full coverage? Well, yeah, you should. Like, there's a value to that.
Yeah.
And so, that's a hard that healthcare is a weird place. It's a tough place. I've been there a really long time and I feel it every day. I know it. You just have to find a way to have the conversation and make it powerful enough that they go, okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I had some healthcare clients back when I had my MSP, and this was even, I mean, this was when HIPAA was just starting to really be a thing, and it was all jumbled up back then. Um, let's see.
Yeah.
I've got my podcast co-host is in the house,
Mm.
and he's saying that his MDM has compliance tools now, allows him to look and see if a computer has CIS or NIST compliant, you know, configurations, which I think is kind of cool.
That is a really good option. Is that, I wonder if that's included with it as this, or is that an additional package on top of that? But when you meet those things, there's other solutions out there that are following in really in line with CIS, probably more so than NIST.
Hmm.
I think CIS has really kind of they've taken a storm approach of sorts, and they're really MSPs are starting to feel that, and it's very active and forward thinking to me, in my opinion. But anytime that you can have some type of an awareness over whatever compliance model you're doing, that's a powerful tool from an MSP, just from the fact that, and not to name drop, but Centeon, for example, they do OS hardening, and there's a process involved with understanding when something goes out of spec and that you're informed. So if there's a variance, you need to be able to know about it. And I'm not sure if that MDM does that, but that's actually a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when things were just starting like this. Um, we were writing scripts and checks in GFI Max to monitor for configuration changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not one of those things, especially from the cybersecurity perspective, when you go to apply solutions, it's easy to forget about it. And
Yeah.
in some circumstances, and I think that there's a subset of MSPs that are small 1 and 2 person shops, and they think I just don't have the bandwidth. Well, that's great. Guess what? There's a service for that. What are you talking about? Bitdefender, they'll manage it for you. Threat Locker, they'll manage it for you. MDR, well, that's managed for you. So there are, fees associated, but you include that in when you start to build your pricing, you include that too. It's not that you
Yeah.
can't, but you need to be creative and say, okay, what solutions can I at least install, make sure they're set up correctly, and allow someone else to manage it. But the monitoring aspect, what you're talking about there, it's making sure that those solutions are still running on those endpoints, and making sure that if
Yeah.
a new device pops up, how did it get tracked? Do we know that it's missing, X, Y, and Z solutions? Because that gap may be all it takes for someone to, have a field day in your organization.
Yep. And let's see, we've got Degley is saying, commenting on the insurance application way of building a stack, and then is asking, do you add any more to your stack besides what is required
Yes.
by the insurance
Yes.
policy?
Vulnerabilities are a big deal. And what does a vulnerability mean? Well, so perfect example. Are you familiar with Evil Jinx?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Okay. So this little fella, so there's a reverse proxy thing going. It's been around for years. It's not new, but man, it has hit the world again. And we're seeing a ton of it. And what this is, it's a man in the middle of attack where you get a link. and you click on the link and it takes you to a website and it's your login. Maybe you have a custom login for Microsoft 365. It's your logo. It's you. And when you enter in the process passes your credentials and it comes back and it steals your session cookie. And then they use a cookie editor in a browser and they log in with your own system or their own login. They don't have your email address. They don't have your password. They don't have your MFA, and they're in. And I mean, they're in until the session tokens, till expires. And so you as an MSP need to be looking for these incidences, things that happen that are random and go, why did that happen? And what do I need to do to fix it? So, for example, maybe it is that you change your email security from a vendor that you have to something that has some sort of reverse proxy or a sandbox that they can click those links in. It sends it to a sandbox and it reviews its actions in order to be able to identify those. Sometimes, and I do think you need to have at least 6 reputable liability insurance applications, because some of them, and it's so weird. If you look at Tokyo Marine, it's like 12 pages. If you look at Beasley, it's like 3. If you look at, since Sinfin, it might be 1 page. What you realize is Tokyo Marine's been nailed. And so they've got a mile long list. Sinfin hasn't been hit real hard, so they don't have a lot of questions at all. They're like, do you have MFA? Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll get you insurance. So when you see an application that only has half a page, it's valuable, but you need the one that's in depth. You need the one that has a bunch. And as you start to pull those away, start to think about other things. Where could there be vulnerabilities that I'm not aware of? MFA, like phishing resistant MFA, or finding SSO solutions like an Okta or something like that to apply to your organization or to your clients or whatever it is. But yes, that's a standard. And so I mean CLI applications as a strategy, but that shouldn't be. It should just be the standard. And anything above and beyond is always on. It's always in play. But everything needs value. It needs a reason, not just because you want to put it in there. You need to it needs to create value for your clients. And if you're just throwing things in because you think you can make some money off of it, well, that's probably not the best idea. But if it's going to fill a hole, by all means, add it. And that these groups are good for that too.
Yeah, and the applications show you where the holes are, right?
Yeah,
that's the main reason why you want to take a look at those applications. Now, we've talked a lot about client-facing solutions. What about, are there any things that you put in your stack to protect the MSP?
Well, we eat our own food. So part of what we do is to protect ourselves is we do our things ourselves. And I think that's really important. A lot of times we forget about that part and we'll say, well, we'll apply this to them, but we won't use it for ourselves. So everything that we do is about securing. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare. It doesn't matter if you are in construction, accounting. Risk is risk, and it doesn't care about the industry. It's just risk. And so if we build it for us, it should work for everyone. And there's obviously one-offs for certain circumstances, a FIPS 140-2 requirement on some sort of cryptology or something like that. But generally speaking, we build it for us and then we expand it out. So we always start with us first. And to us, I think that's a better structure, and it creates confidence for me. And for when we have these conversations with clients or prospects, I feel really good when I come to the table and say, this is what we do and this is why we do it.
Yeah.
And
we use it to protect ourselves.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of great comments going on tonight. And I just want to say, I really do appreciate the audience tonight for so many different things that they've added. Justin is saying that the MDM that he mentioned is Adigy, which obviously is a Mac MDM.
They need it.
And then this is a good one. Tim is saying, where does policy /SOP/documenting play into the stack?
You can't have a conversation with Tim without having that.
I know. Tim's been on before.
No, Tim is all over it. Here's the struggle, and this is a struggle bus, and Tim knows this. This is a struggle bus. When you go into an organization that you don't own, it's really hard to enforce policy. It's really hard to say, this is what we want you to do. Can you please adhere to it? There's a structure. It's one thing for us to have a policy that says this is how we're going to handle breaches. This is how we're going to have onboarding and offboarding for your client, or, for your new staff and things of that nature. But when it comes down to the business, we've had a more than challenging time with getting ownership within the organization, because I think that's where it lies. You have to get ownership inside the business that they're willing to do that. And if you can do that, then that's very important. And it's definitely structured. But we have trouble from time to time with someone clicks on things they're not supposed to, and there's no accountability for that. And that's a real problem. Yeah. Because what we allow, we teach. And so if employee A clicks the link and they shouldn't have, there should be a policy that says, here's what we do. Here's the sanctions. Number 1, you're going to get a verbal. Number 2, you're going to be written up. And number 3, you're going to be employed somewhere else, because we don't need that here. But then when push comes to shove, they don't do that. Yep. And so it's really hard. To Tim's point, it's critical. It's just, there's a limit to what we're able to do because we're not owners of those businesses. We can't go in and we can provide the value and say, look, here's standard policies. We really want you to apply for them. And we have some that love it and eat it up. Majority don't.
Yeah. I imagine though, that because you are, and I love the fact that you use the words or the phrase eating your own dog food. Because I don't know if you know this, but that was actually the podcast episode that Justin and I dropped this week. Was about eating your own dog food, which, by the way, in case people haven't watched the episode and they don't know, that is actually a term that came out of Microsoft.
No, I didn't know that at all.
Very interesting. We learned that literally while we were recording the podcast.
I wouldn't even have thought that would come from Microsoft. I didn't think they were that smart.
Yeah, and it's from like 1987 or 88. It goes way back.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then Degley is saying, practice what we preach, which absolutely applies. So I imagine that, doing the policies in-house and the SOPs in-house make it much easier to deploy to clients. The other thing that I want to say about that is that
that's true.
You do have to have a certain level of relationship where you have a certain amount of ownership in your client's environment to effectively sell a security stack. And I think this is where we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk more about the sales aspect of, now you've determined what your security stack is. You know why you're deploying this security stack and the individual pieces of it. How do we actually go out and present it to the client?
When you feel good about what you're delivering, number 1, you have to be all in on delivering it. If you're weary, if you waver, if you aren't confident when you have these conversations, they're out. They may still stick with whatever because you gave them you gave the experience that there's an option. And so we completely, and I'm not saying this works for everyone, it just works really well for us. We are an all-in or an all-out kind of organization. And we learned that if we sit there and entertain the Breakfix style people, the ones that want to cut back on fees, we're going to have that for the rest of our lives, and we don't want those burdens. And so in a sales conversation, we start with, we're different than anyone else you've probably experienced. And why we are different is we are so heavily focused on cybersecurity. Yes, we do IT support. It is not our focus. You can get that anywhere in the world that you want, but security is our focus. You have cyber liability insurance, you have requirements, and we already know about them. In fact, we include those into our packaging and to our deliverables, so that you are already prepared for the most part for most of those cyber liability applications. And if that's not where you are as a person, as a company, we understand, and we can shake hands and we can come back a different day when you're ready to have that conversation. But to us, that is most important. We're here to make sure that you open your doors every single day, but we also understand that not everyone is there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And when we have that conversation first, is the very first conversation, we set the tone. They either can off board and they'll say, nope, we don't care about any of that. And we've had those. We don't care about any of that. We just want support. Well, we're probably not your guys. We're going to be so expensive, you're going to hate us. And
Yeah.
so then once that conversation comes in, we start talking more about, we're not the cheapest. If you're looking for cheap, you know, the key to having a successful sales conversation is hearing every single objection from every person that you've ever spoken to and having an answer before they ever ask it again. So what you learn from from client A or from prospect A, you take that information, you go, they were worried about cost. I've got to get that out of their head. Well, why are they worried about cost? Well, they're thinking about support. I got to stop talking about support. That's crazy, and you can get that. You can get that anywhere.
Yeah.
So let's have a conversation and shift away from that to say we're security focused. We're going to keep you safe every day. And then once that passes, then we come back and we have a little bit deeper conversation about, value to their organization, like what are they doing and things of that nature. But once you get through the first call, everything else starts to shift because you've already got them to understand that you're not cheap. If they're looking for cheap, you're not the guy. If they're looking for support, you're not it. And if they don't care about security, you're not it. And those are your three main kind of objections that you get through that call. And so starting from that point and then moving into what we would consider, generally we have about 3 touch points. We've also kind of shifted, and this may be a completely different conversation, but we've shifted. We used to do assessments like pre-sales assessments. The problem that we had with that was that it delayed the sale way too long because you had to schedule it. You had to get there and do it. You had to come back to the office. Then you had to build it out, create the report. Then you had to go back and do it again. We have 4 years worth of assessments, and one person has successfully passed it. Everyone fails. You just should expect that when you go in, it's going to be trash. And you just work from that perspective. So we have a process. And the first thing we do is we run AV. We run a full scan. We put AV on, we put RMM and AV on everything. We run full scans. Then we throw MDR and we let MDR get to experience the world. And we get calls that say, hey, there's an issue. Hey, this computer's been locked out. We're not letting you have, we have a good MDR and they are on it. Within 5 minutes of them getting on a computer, they shut it down and said, the only way you're getting it back on is if you rebuild it. So those types of things we just pulled out of the sales process. And we just say, look, we're going to come at you with some questions so that we can get a proposal, whatever it is that you ask. And we're going to take those numbers from you and we're going to assume those numbers to be factual. And then we're going to build a proposal on that. And then there's a little caveat in there that basically says, if there's a variance up or down, we all agree that when we onboard, the real numbers stay and everything gets adjusted. And we have never had a complaint ever once. And it's took us from 3 to 4 week sales process to even a couple days just because of that. So does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Accelerating your sales
tremendous.
process like that makes a big difference. Plus the assessment ahead of time, besides all of the just logistical challenges and the time challenges to getting it done, you're right. Every environment is going to have some problems.
Yep.
So the assessment is going to be done whether you do it before or you do it after they sign on the dotted line. So you might as well do it after they sign on the dotted line so that you're doing it as part of what you're being paid for. Now,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, interesting because this goes all across the board when you talk to different people. During your onboarding, because you're doing an assessment, there are things you're finding, new things that weren't part of the proposal. What is your process during that? Are you charging by the hour until things get to a certain baseline? Are you charging your flat fee? How do you handle that initial onboarding period?
We do. So unlike a lot of people, we don't lock people into to long-term contracts. So we do an onboarding fee that covers our expense, our efforts on the front side of that evolution. So we do a 50% onboarding of whatever the MRR is for that client. And that's included, you pay that up front, and then you pay the first month's fee. We're always a paid in advance MSP. So you pay those fees, we come in, we onboard it, we make adjustments. We're not, we're not sitting here trying to make, break the bank for every client. So if it's a small flex, if it's just a few, we don't even adjust the onboarding cost. But I mean, if they said they had 20 employees and they had 50, well, we would go back and adjust the MRR, but we would also adjust the onboarding because there is expenses for that.
Right. And
That's
I like that idea because it's simple.
Yeah.
It gives them motivation to give you the right answers up front.
It does.
So that there's not as many surprises at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very novel way to handle it, because a lot of people like flat fee, right? And that's close to flat fee as long as they're accurate in what they tell you.
That's correct.
And 50% sounds like a good number in terms of those initial startup and onboarding costs.
We had one particular prospect that they wouldn't go for managed services. So we made a bit of an adjustment, and we said, well, here's what's up. We understand where you're at, but there are a few solutions that are 100% mandatory. It's not optional. You have to have these, period. If we'll do that, we can start there and we can grow somewhere, because I get that. Not everyone is at that point, but they want to be. And that's where we gave them a proposal, and they were like, oh, okay, let's do it. Well, the next thing you know, it almost doubled because their numbers were wrong. They had no idea, but that's not on us. And so shift accountability back to the end user, or to the business, to say, I need you to get the numbers. You should know your business. We're going to go from those numbers. And if there's a variance, we're just both going to agree that we're going to make this work. And as long as you're good with that, let's roll with this. And so even in that situation, I think it stung a little bit, but it only stung because they just weren't prepared. And that wasn't on us per se. We just brought awareness to it. So it does make the conversation. I'm telling you, I want to do everything I can I want to have a call this morning, and I want to have it signed this afternoon. That's my mind is running that fast. And so I'm doing everything I can to pull anything out of it that's really unnecessary, that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm going to act like they're all bad shape anyway. And even from a technology standard. So we have a technology standard that we put into our package, and that's part of that. You must meet this requirement. Here's the limit. It must be this type of processor, so-and-so. And I have a study in there from Oxford about how much time people lose and how much they burn of business money because they're using old computers. And they have to meet that standard. And they promise by signing that if they have anything that doesn't meet their criteria, they will work with us to get it replaced.
Yeah.
And just never had a problem. So all of those things, and Clyde, I know we're kind of getting off this topic, but security really starts with the conversation at the very beginning. You have to have a stance that's strong that says, look, we're willing to walk away from the table. Yeah. If you aren't willing to walk away from the table, then you're going to give on something else, and you're not going to be selling it.
Yep. And like Degley says, it's all about transparency, honesty, and setting the right expectations.
Yeah. Yes. You have to set the expectation. And when you do, you look like the leader in the room. Right. If you're wavering, like, who wants to buy from that anyway? Right. And like I said, you've got people that say, I can't do it because I don't have the capacity. Well, there's people that can do that for you. Like that's easy. That's super easy. It's just going in, and we did it early on. We want to take everybody because we didn't have any money. We'll take anyone. And then there's a point where we said, this is dumb. I'm burning so much effort on people that give me nothing. I'm just going to take the bullet. We're going to take the bullet, and we're just going to say, you don't fit, and that's okay. We are interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing us, and we're looking to make sure that we're both a fit for each other. That changes the dynamic for you having a conversation, and puts the power in the middle versus giving them all the power because you're like, beg, please, 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 use my company. It just changes things.
Well, and it sounds like you're really going to the effort of showing them that you really are doing the best thing for them. You know, that Oxford study, you're showing them proof that you have reasons for what you're selling them and what you're requiring, because there's a level that just has to be met, or it doesn't make business sense for you, the MSP.
Yeah. We're super transparent. Like everything. When they don't meet those standards, we give they're selling computers is a commodity business. It's not worth it. It's not. I'll
Mm-hmm.
do it. It's just not worth it. So what we offer is, look, here's the thing. You got 4 computers that don't meet the requirements. Here's our minimum requirements. You're welcome to buy these yourself. I don't care where you buy them from, but they have to have these expectations. And if you do, you might save money, but here's what happens. When there's a support issue on those devices, you're going to have to follow through with those with whoever you bought those through.
Mm-hmm.
If we buy them, the value is that we'll handle support costs for you. That's a game changer in the way that they handle.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll do that. There are some people that'll just say, no, I'll buy my own devices. But when one goes bad, they just go buy another one.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like that mentality of upfront transparency. We're not here to nickel and dime you, but we're not cheap. Give some flexibility for when you're not cheap. They're not thinking that you're nickel and diming them.
Right.
And so it all kind of works together as a whole. And any part of it that you don't do with the rest of it kind of tends to fall apart. So it's got to be the whole picture from the beginning to the very end.
So, you know, I hear some interesting ways that people are going about, you know, selling cybersecurity lately. And one of them is, and this kind of comes to the transparency piece a bit, you know, because it's not false, you know, it's definitely truth, that if a client doesn't adopt a certain level of security stack, there is significant risk then placed on the MSP, which in turn means the MSP really should be charging the client more because the MSP is taking on that risk, if the MSP were to want to take on that risk at all. What are your thoughts on a talk track or something like that around that type of thing?
So yes, without a doubt, when you know what it's really because at the end of the day, you know better. When your clients are not taking what's necessary to move forward, you know better.
Right.
And by not, I really think borderline you're negligent. You as MSP are negligent by not figuring out a way to make this work. How can we make this work? How can we look, last year you were on and so I learned this from Bruce McCauley. He said,
Yep.
put a year on your package. He said, so 2024 comes around, you got a 2024 package. And so we even put in our contract or in our invoices that we send out, there's a little thing there that says you are not on our most current package. Please connect with us so that we can get you upgraded. Those types of things are really important. But yes, when they don't take what you know is important for them, it is your liability. I think when you run into struggles with people that do that, though, it's generally because you took the wrong client originally, and they were talking about you're talking about dollars from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so, likely, if you look back at that conversation, the first conversation you had, they're going to be like, "Just throw the price out. Tell me what it's worth." That's not the way we work.
Yeah.
But if that's the way they work, they're going to nickel and dime this the rest of the way through, as I mentioned earlier. And those are the individuals that will say, well, wait a minute now, blah, blah, blah. I don't really need that. And say, look, this is what we're doing. The other thing you can throw out there is that declination letter that says you're declining this, and anything happens that would have been remediated or would have never happened originally, we're going to bill you for all of that effort. No one likes to sign. That is a horrible feeling, but it's part of business. I mean,
Yeah.
you spend thousands of dollars on your legal agreements to get you out of trouble. And then when you got a client that's not willing to up it, we actually just, last year we migrated a couple people out. We just said, this is what we're going to do. And this is a requirement. And they wouldn't budge. And we said, we're good. All right, take care.
Yeah.
We'll offboard you anywhere you want to go.
I think that's really what you have to do, because we've gotten to a point now where MSPs at a certain point cannot accept a negligent level of risk because of their client.
That's a fact.
And
100%.
yes, you can continue to do break fix. There's always going to be some break fix business out there, and I'm not putting anybody down for doing that. But anybody who's doing regular services for any type of personal or business entity, if you aren't covering yourself for the risk that you inherit by taking on a client, you need to seriously consider what that looks like and how you're going to cover yourself.
There's no doubt. If you are break fix, and so there is that, I'll say another subset. There's that subset of break fix that will offer an antivirus.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're offering a security solution, I guarantee you, whether you think it or not, they think you're taking care of their security. You're
Yep.
already on the hook. You don't even know any different. And so if you're allowing that to fly, boy, you're about to be in trouble. Because let me tell you, EDR is as basic as brushing your teeth. It is
Yeah.
like, it's so easy to get around. It's not stopping things. It's a layer, but you've got to have many layers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just that layer. It's so there was about 12 people the other day in a little seminar that we did for credit unions and security structure, and we said, look, there was a point where passwords were the thing, and then they went, oh my gosh, people are stealing their passwords. Let's do MFA. MFA is the end all be all. Now people are getting around MFA. Now they're stealing your cookie. Like, if you don't have multiple layers in there, you're going to get beat. And you
Yeah.
don't want to be that break fix guy that everybody thinks you're doing security for them and you're not.
Yeah. Well, Craig, we're getting close to the end of our time, and I just want to make sure that we get some of your best tips out there. So, what are some of your best tips for selling a security stack to a client? I know we've probably discussed some of them in the course
Yeah,
of
a
the
lot of them.
show,
Yeah.
but put them into like a couple of bullet points for me.
First, go in there with confidence that if you're selling security, sell security. Sell it as a focal point because it differentiates you from those who are selling IT support. It separates you from them from the sense that you may lose a prospect because they're not interested in that. But let's just learn that up front. Let's realize that our relationship isn't going to work out early and not at the end. Put into your agreement that these estimates for proposal prospecting or for proposal purposes are your numbers, and we're going to run with those like they're real. And then we're going to adjust. We all agree that we're going to adjust when we onboard and find the truth, up or down, wherever that's at. Have a technology requirement for structured standards. Make sure that you build your, and we're not going to talk about this here, but make sure that your pricing is structured in a way that it makes sense too. That has to have a strategy too.
Yeah.
Everything has to be able to be blocked together like a bunch of Legos, and everything just makes sense. And so that deliverable, whether you're using cyber reliability insurance or whatever you choose to do, NIST, whatever, it has to have a structure. Make sure that you have a strategy for doing things and not just, spitballing and throwing it on the wall and see what sticks. Those are really important. Confidence is tremendously important in the conversation. It's knowing that no is probably going to come at often, and you may not get as many because you're security focused, but when you do, you're going to win and they're going to win. And that's a big deal. And so make sure we know what we're focused on too. Those are the big parts. Don't be afraid when you don't have capacity, when you don't have staffing. When you build your pricing structure, there's a cost for, let's say, an EDR. Well, get that managed. It's a little bit more. Put that cost in there with managed. It's already done. It's consumed.
Yep.
And so that when you sell that, you don't have to worry about it. You know that when you set it up, you set it up properly, the rest is taken care of. So don't be afraid to sell security because you're a small company. There are ways to do it. We are a very small company. There's 3 owners that run this. We don't have a single tech, not one. And so it's way doable, but you have to think outside the box and you have to be confident knowing that you can make it happen.
Yeah. There are plenty of vendors out there that will help you and are not
Yes.
looking to rip you off. Um,
Yes.
and it's just outsourcing of a different kind, right?
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Yeah. And
so
I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just say, be committed to what you're delivering. Like, who do you want to be when you're delivering this? Who are you? and make sure that you stay true to yourself. Don't, the last thing I'll say for sure, don't go at it and go, what's the cheapest blah? What's the cheapest blah? We're in a market and an industry, and there's a few people that talk tremendously about you got to give value and you can make millions of dollars. But in reality, for a lot of the smaller MSPs, it's a multiplier. The more something costs, the more money you can actually make on it, and likely the more value it presents. A $1 per user email security solution is not nearly as valuable as one that's probably $4.
Yep.
And so if you have the same multiplier, the $4 is going to make you money. If you're looking to be cheap as an MSP, I guarantee your clients are too, and that's not going to work out well. And you've just built yourself a job. And so, I mean, think big, think down the road, think what is it that I need down the road to continue to drive these security solutions, and being willing to know that not every client is my client.
Yep. Very important, because not every MSP is for every client, and not every client is for every MSP. And that's why I think there's plenty of room for all of us in this industry. Craig, thank you very much for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Hopefully at some point I can reciprocate and
yes, I'd love to have you
podcast.
on. For sure.
Because anything that I can do to make the community a little bit better, that's what I'm trying to do. And by the way, speaking of, thank you so much. I know that sometimes we don't always see eye to eye in the group, but that's the reason the group exists.
No, you are great. You really are. And I know that's not what you're expecting to get out of this, but I love your group, your questions, you throw things out, you attempt to get people to think a little differently. And it is a breath of fresh air when you can have a debate and everybody knows we still care about each other at the end. And we're not sitting here beating each other up saying you're an idiot and I'm an idiot. We can just go, we can agree to disagree, and we are all okay with that.
Yep.
But we learn something from it.
We are all in this together.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And I do appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the green room for just a second.
All right.
While I close us out.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really do appreciate. We had a lot of great comments and a lot of great conversation in the different comments on the different platforms. If you're not aware, we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, please go ahead and give us a like, a subscribe, ring that bell. And don't forget, we are at about 8 minutes before we get to Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast. His podcast is every Wednesday night. Well, the live stream for his podcast is every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, right after this show. So really do appreciate you going over there and checking that out, because I know that Marv would appreciate it too. And he as well has some great content and some great guests on his show. Until next week, have a great one.